Good evening. I call the order the Woodland Park Planning Commission for Thursday, May 25th. We take a roll call, please.
Chairman Hartsfield,
Here.
excuse me, Vice Chair Brown,
Here.
Don DeZellem,
Here.
George Jones,
Here.
Ken Kennedy,
Here.
Larry Larson,
Here.
and Sean Nielsen. Here.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well, tonight we have one item on our agenda, which is the work session for the code review of the Woodland Park Development Code. Erin, do we have an introduction?
Sure.
Well, I guess we should have an introduction to start with, yes.
We should, as you guys are, I'm sure, aware, we lost Carol Harvey, who has since been appointed as a member of City Council. So the good news is we got 2 for 1 out of that exchange. And so with that, we have joining us for the first time, Don DeZellem and George Jones. And we're going to meet with them next Thursday to provide a little bit more of an orientation and overview and give them a heads up in terms of where to spend their time doing homework in preparation for upcoming cases and such that you'll be seeing in the next several months. So.
Very good. Welcome. Thank you. Glad to have you here.
Welcome. And we still have 2 vacancies. For whatever that's worth, we still have 2 vacancies. And the Board of Adjustment still has 2 openings for alternates, as does the Board of Review. So we're not done, soliciting members for our boards. So please keep that in mind. Thank you. End of commercial.
Did the other candidate decide to back off?
I believe so, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, there was another prospect that had previously talked to City Council, and it ended in a tie vote, and therefore it needed to come back to council again. And my understanding, he has chosen not to pursue that at this time. So with regard to this item, if you're ready.
Yes, let's move on.
Okay. Most recently, over the course of 4 various work sessions, we ground through all of the various definitions. And in talking with Jen Gardner, our consultant with Logan Simpson, decided that it was prudent to next dive into the use table itself, since what we call things and how it appears in that use table are fairly closely linked. And there's potentially, well, as with everything we're doing, there's some additional massaging and cleanup that's going to need to happen. But at least in terms of this initial brush through, and are we capturing things accurately? Is the other are there other things that we need to provide clarification on? This is the opportunity to do that. So in your packet, you had a list that came out of the code in terms of what we identify as the purpose or the intent of each of those zone districts, just for context. And then the use table, the proposed use table itself, that did identify some new uses that were listed, as well as proposed changes. So with that, I'm going to turn things over to Jen and let her lead tonight's session. Oh, and by the way, Commissioner Larson gets an A++++, because he turned in homework that was not requested, highly detailed, 4 pages of comments. So he's making the rest of you look.
Oh, you ruined the curve.
Yeah, pretty much. but
I
anyhow.
can't help myself.
And the rest of us are gonna have to bring
Yeah.
it up.
So, you guys all do fabulous work for us. We recognize that this is just an amazing time commitment. So it's just thank you very much. And so now with that, I'll turn that over to Jen. So thank you for letting me pick at you, Larry, in a positive way.
I'm used to it.
Awesome.
You
Well,
there,
thank
Jen?
you. Yeah. Can you guys
And
hear
if
me
you're
okay?
talking, we cannot hear you.
What?
That did not help.
Mm.
There's
Jen, it's raining. Internet's been in and out.
Yeah.
Was that you, David, making the adjustments on the screen, or is
Yeah, that's Jen.
it's Jen? Okay. So she is connected somehow.
Cannot hear you. This is gonna be a long night.
How good was your work? Can we just call it?
I'm good.
All those in favor?
Or do we have a proposed method of going through this, starting at the top and working our way down?
Well, Jen's team had also done some work to, like I said, reference those definitions against how they appear in the use table. So I was relying on her in terms of how to launch things and talk about stuff. Still can't hear you, Jen. So yeah, I'm kind of stuck without her. My apologies.
Can you hear me now?
Maybe we can just talk a little bit about some general things.
Sure.
On the table, we have proposed use, existing use collapsed into proposed use. I noticed that a lot of these definitions here were from the previous code. Were they in the attempt to kind of incorporate some of the things that we've talked about already?
You mean in our definitions?
Yes.
Okay.
Like I said, I need Jen to answer that since
Hear me
it
now?
was her team that did that work. I believe it's more just to show that continuity between how things had previously been listed and if there was a change, what does it look like in the use table now? And if you recall, by looking back through the use table, and a lot of times there's standards embedded in the use table. So from the standpoint of the primary end user, the practicing planner, it does make staff's head explode that we look in definitions for standards, we look in the use table for standards, and then potentially there's this whole other section of additional standards. And this is where I've joked before, the current code. Well, the joke is that it looks like it appears to have been organized by a squirrel who was off his Ritalin. But what it really reeks of is years and years of band-aids and patches as to why it's that disjointed. So that's where, as much as this process is painful, it's potentially going to be incredibly helpful going forward. So
I just mentioned that because I thought it'd be very helpful to see the revised definitions.
okay.
Can you
Can
guys
you
hear?
talk yet, Jen?
Can you hear me?
No.
I'm gonna leave and come back.
Is your microphone on at all, Jen? Oh, she disappeared, so. Hmm.
Well, I don't know if this is putting you gentlemen on the spot, and maybe you'd like to introduce yourselves a little bit to what prompted you to join us tonight.
Go first. So George Jones, I think if you guys saw the interview process, my wife and I kept saying co-owners, and then at one point I said owner, and my wife's like, what? But we own a couple businesses here in town, and the buildings to go with it. So as I mentioned during city council, the planning commission I know is certainly advisory to the city council itself, but I think very important and key to, especially as we look to develop and grow. And I do believe, I can tell you, in my experience, growth is not an option. Woodland Park will be growing and it'll be changing. And so it's critical that we support the planning director and we support that growth in a organized, methodical way, because otherwise you get a little bit of that chaos like we've seen with the STRs, right? So that's my intro.
Appreciate that.
Sure.
Don, you gonna say?
Yeah, Don DeZellem. Part of the reason why I decided to apply for the planning commission was when I helped with or chaired one of the sections of the comp plan back in 2020. Presented before you guys on it. And being on the Parks and Rec board, we do get to look at some of the stuff coming before you. And got an idea of, looking at the packets that are presented, analyzing them, taking a look at them, evaluating them for our purposes with the Parks and Rec board. And I figured it'd be kind of a logical step to be able to move forward into looking at them a little bit more critically. I plan on being around in town for a long time, plan on retiring here. And like George said, the town is going to grow. It's got to grow in the right way. We do have a limit that we know. And we just need to be able to wisely plan how we do it.
Good, thank you.
Okay, can you
I'm
guys
still-
hear me now?
Oh, I can see you.
Can't
Can-
hear you.
Still can't hear me.
Do you have these problems in
Can
Cripple
you
Creek
hear me
too?
now?
Yes.
Okay.
I don't know.
We hooked up those new cables.
Can you
yet?
hear me?
Can't hear you, Jen.
Next step is to dial in on our phone. Next step would be to dial in from our phone, get another audio connection and just use the computer to show the screen.
Yeah, I think that's a solid move. There's usually, then sometimes the Zoom and WebEx tend to have a double mute function. So you want to look.
Jen, if you're using a docking station, unplug it.
Okay. Can you guys still not
Disconnect
hear
all
me?
your Bluetooth
Oh,
devices.
can't hear you.
Yeah, she's using her headset, her AirPods.
Mhm.
Sometimes
Well,
when
maybe we can jump down and go to the final reports, or if we have projections of upcoming cases you could share with us. Or is that-
Well, first of all, with regard to short-term rentals, one of everyone's favorite topics in town. At the last city council meeting, they have asked to schedule a work session on those for next week, June 1st. I believe it's at 5:30 here in this room. And as part of preparation for that work session, they had also asked for a copy of the ordinance that you all had made the original recommendation on that sent to them all those months ago. So they asked for a copy of that back. And I've been pretty firm about not bringing anything back to this group until I had clear direction from city council on that. And I realize that even if we get clear direction, there's a potential things will shift, but at least helps us, I think, in terms of, if, 4 out of the 7 are saying, put this in the ordinance, that's what we then review and make a recommendation to city council on, for them to then go through their own hearing and adoption process. How quickly they provide direction after this next work session, I am not sure. So our schedule going forward is subject to a little bit of change, because I imagine there's going to be a sense of urgency around that particular topic again.
I see. I'm confused about me. So there's a work session and you weren't sure how quickly they provide direction after that work session. That would suggest there's the direction from what we hear in the work session and some other interpretation of the work session.
No, that's actually represented or suggesting whether or not they can come to consensus in the work session. whether they need more than one work session to provide consensus. Because they've already done one work session several a month, I don't even remember when, a month or two ago. And from that, there was no direction that came out of that one. So it's really just completely dependent upon when they say this is what we want. And then from that, you know, when I get things scheduled in front of you all for a work session, as well as prior to that, I imagine our city attorney is gonna draft the suggested changes, because you know, you guys have seen, you know, pretty firm ordinance previously. So that's what we'll bring back for a work session. You guys have a chance to say what you want to see amended or revised, and then we can schedule the hearings. That's my anticipation of how this should go. I may get told it needs to happen otherwise, but that's what I'm looking at right now.
Are you anticipating that we'll have a work session as well before that?
Yes, yeah, no, that was my plan.
Mhm.
And did not having you guys go straight to a public hearing on something. It's, I could imagine you would want a work session.
Yes, please.
So,
Can you guys hear me now?
Still can't hear you, Jen, so I'm going to continue with reports here. So that's that item. And then kind of on the side related to that, there's a citizen group that has started their own petition
Claire, can you hear
petition
me?
for citizens initiative. And that petition has been approved as to
I can hear
form.
you.
And they have until August 21st to collect signatures, and they're actually, that includes their own ordinance that would potentially show up on a ballot for public, for the community to vote on. So there's that aspect of this too. Yes,
So they're proposing an ordinance
yes,
and putting that on the ballot potentially
potentially.
for public decision.
And I believe it's 1,018 signatures that they need on those petition or that
Hey,
petition.
David. Do we want to check an audio source to make sure we're hearing the Zoom audio and it's not our end? I can turn my mic on and say something. I can turn my mic on and just make sure it's coming through. Testing. Test 1, 2. I am unmuted. I'm not hearing it through the. Let me turn this other mic off. Testing 1, 2, test 1, 2. So we have our audio off on this end. Right here, my
There,
mic is working. I see it, but it's not coming through the audio.
I apologize, I'm going to restart my computer. When I came in this evening, it was still on, and oftentimes just rebooting will cure these ills. Let me give that a shot. So I'm going to end this for now. Reboot. Let's see.